In this video, we are going to discuss the game played between Hikaru Nakamura versus Vidit Gujrathi from the FIDE Candidates Chess Tournament 2024. From the round number 2, Hikaru is playing with the white pieces and is playing with the black pieces. The game is simply exceptional. You will simply love this game, so I don't want to waste any further time, so let's start. So Nakamura is playing with the white pieces and he starts the game with 1 e4. Vidit plays e5, followed king's pawn opening. Knight f3, knight c6, and we have the move Royal Lopez opening bishop b5, knight to f6, also known as the Berlin defense. And here Nakamura played the move d3, defending the pawn on e4, bishop to c5, developing the bishop, c3. The idea of c3 is to play the move d4 or even b4 in the future. So here with this simply short castle, waiting for Nakamura's response. Nakamura simply castle as well. We have the move d6. So black's idea is usually to put the bishop on g4, trying to pin this knight. So first Nakamura played the move h3, stopping bishop g4, and now with it played the move knight to e7. So the main idea in this position is to play knight e7, put the knight to g6, have this control of the f4 square, and try to continue the game. So after knight e7, Nakamura plays the move d4, which is a very standard move, attacking the bishop. And the main move is to play the move bishop e6, where white continues with bishop to d3, knight to g6, and the game continues normally. But going back, at the place of playing the move bishop to b6, Vidit played the move c6 in this position, attacking the bishop on b5. So what's happening in this position actually? So if you try to capture the bishop, black's idea is to simply capture the bishop back, and after pawn takes, black is going to play the move knight to g6. So it looks like white is having a very strong pawn on d6, whereas white is having bad pawn structure on b5. So it should be good for white. But exactly how are you going to continue the position? If you try to play the move queen d3, attacking the pawn, and the idea is to play the move rook d1, which makes the most sense, black is simply going to play the move bishop to e6. And if you try to capture the pawn, black's idea is to simply capture the pawn back. And black is having just too much lead in development, I would say, because white's queen side has not yet developed any of the piece. So going back, if white tries to play something like rook d1, black's idea is to simply focus on developing his pieces, where after takes, bishop c4. If you try to grab another pawn, bishop to e2, attacking the rook, capturing the knight, and white is having a bad pawn structure, followed by knight h5, and black's idea is to simply get the queen into the game, knight f4, and black is already winning the game. So going back, it's already a bad idea to capture the bishop. So Hikaru took at least like 7 minutes and he played the move bishop to d3. And here Vidit simply played the move bishop to b6. And after bishop b6, Hikaru now took like 20 minutes and he decided to capture the pawn on e5, which makes the most sense. A normal way to continue the position is to play something like knight to d2, and after something like knight g6, you can play the move rook e1, where after knight to f4, you can simply put the bishop to f1, and white can have a normal game. But going back, Nakamura decided to invest 20 minutes and he simply captured the pawn on e5, where after takes, and he simply captured the pawn back. And it looks like white is simply having a pawn up, and white should be having a good position. But now you can pause the video and try to find the best move for black in this position. Okay, so it's all part of a preparation for Vidit Gujrathi. He instantly captured the pawn on h3 with the bishop. And now, whereas Nakamura is having 1 hour 20 minutes, Vidit is still having 1 hour 55 minutes. So he has only invested 5 minutes, or you can say 4.5 minutes. Bishop into h3, and the idea is very interesting. If you try to capture the bishop in the position, black's idea is to play the move queen to b8, which is the only move. The point here is, queen c7 or queen d6 is not really working because bishop f4 simply defends the knight. But you play the move queen to b8. The point here is, if you first try to move the knight, black is going to play the move queen to g3 check. You can't really capture the queen because the pawn is pinned up. So you must play the move king h1, and black can simply capture the pawn. And after knight to h2, black's idea is to simply play the move rook d8, capturing the bishop. It's a double attack. So white have to play something like f3. And now already something like knight to h5 is a resignable position for white, because knight to g3 is coming up and white can already resign. So going back, knight to f3 is already a bad move. So the best move is to play the move bishop to f4, bishop to c7 now, attacking the knight. And the basic point here is, if you try to move the knight, black can happily capture the bishop. So that's the whole point of playing the move queen to b8, allowing bishop c7. So after bishop c7, the best move is to play bishop g2, which is a very hard move to calculate, bishop h2. The point here is, after bishop takes, white wants to play f4, kicking the bishop back and saying that black queen on b8 is a badly placed piece because the rook on 8 is not going to develop. So after bishop c7, white can play the move queen to f3, where after knight g6, white can play knight f3, and white is having a fine position. It's an even position. But I practically feel that white is having a bit weak king side, and black can actually put pressure on the pawns, which are actually crumbled up in pieces. So that's why it's a bad idea, and it's at the same time very hard to calculate. So at the place of capturing the bishop, Nakamura simply played the move knight to c4 after taking 5 minutes. So after knight c4, the idea is pretty clear. White's idea is to capture the bishop, and at the same time to attack the bishop on h3. Vidit invested 20 minutes and he found the move bishop to g4. Attacking the queen on d1, you can't really play f3 because the pawn is pinned up. So you must play queen c2, and now Vidit played the move bishop to c7 after taking around 33 minutes. So after bishop c7, like a normal way to continue the possession is to play something like knight g6 and nothing's happening. After takes, like white can say that white is having the bishop pair, but still white's pawn on e4 is a bit weak. Black is having this open a file, so black is still better. But Vidit decided to come up with another plan, and he decided to keep the bishops on the board via bishop to c7, allowing white to play the move e5, attacking the knight on f6. And after e5, Vidit played the move knight to d7, which is not the best move according to the engine, but I still feel practically it's simply the best move. The point is pretty clear. If you try to play the move knight d5, white is going to capture the pawn, king goes back, and now you can play the move bishop d3, and white is having a fine position. But here Vidit played the move knight to d7. And after knight d7, Nakamura simply chopped off the pawn on h10, which is very natural. King to h8, and now we have the move bishop to d3 back. And the point here is, the best move in this position is to play the move queen e4. And the main problem that this move is simply not a natural move. Black can simply play the move f5, and it looks like the bishop is simply trapped because you can't really end passing, because after knight takes, you are simply losing the piece because the bishop is also protected by the knight, and it looks like a completely lost position. So going back, after f5, you won't believe it, but the best move is to simply sacrifice a piece. Bishop takes, queen check, king g8, and now playing the move bishop to g5. I personally feel that Hikaru can really find this all the moves, bishop g5 attacking the knight. But the basic point here is, after rook f7, you need to find knight to d6, which is still findable, attacking the rook. And the point here is, after knight to d6, black can simply capture the pawn on e5. And after knight into e5, you can't really capture the knight because it's losing. Because after takes, if I simply try to trade all the pieces, black is having 2 minor pieces against the rook, which is completely winning position for black. So capturing the rook is a bad idea, but you first need to capture the knight. And after rook takes, now you can simply capture the bishop. And after having a queen trade, black is a pawn down, but at the exchange of a pawn, black is having just 10 of compensation and a very easy play. And it's such hard to calculate every particular variation in such a depth. So queen e4 is, I would say, humanly impossible to find. So after king to h8, Nakamura simply went back with the bishop, and now the point here is, black is going to play the move b5, attacking the knight on c4, forcing knight to move from the c4 square, and now simply capturing the pawn on e5 with the knight. So that's the idea of playing knight d7 and now knight into e5, capturing the pawn and also defending the bishop at the same time. So after knight into e5, we have the move bishop to e2 because the bishop was simply hanging up. So bishop e2, and now we just simply push the pawn to f5, the best move in the position. After f5, the position is pretty clear. If you try to capture the bishop in the position with the knight g4, after fg4, black is having the open f5. Black's all pieces are very well placed actively, having the full control of the center. The g4 pawn is extremely strong, controlling all the king side. So going back, it's already a bad move. So Nakamura played the move f4, trying to stop Vidit's f4 because it looks like a very dangerous move. So f4, which is already a bad move, And now after f4, we just simply find a brilliant move in the position, which is to play the move bishop to b6, deciding to sacrifice the knight. And after bishop b6, Nakamura played the move king to f2 in the game. So the point, what is happening actually? After bishop b6, if you try to capture the knight, black is going to play the move knight to d5, which is a very strong move. And the point here is, if you try to capture the bishop, trying to simplify the position, black is going to capture the knight, and the queen is simply hanging up, so you have to capture the knight forcefully. Bishop takes, king move, and now black can happily capture the bishop. And the point here is, the white king is simply busted. Black is having the dash for bishop, the pawn is extremely strong, black just needs a check and the game is over. The position is already lost for white completely. So going back, it's not really happening. So Nakamura decided to move the king, defending the knight, trying to defend the knight. And here, Vidit simply still went in with the knight to d5. You can already feel the position is completely winning for black because black is having all his pieces centralized, whereas white is completely busted. So knight to d5, we have rook h1 check, king to g8, and now simply pawn takes the knight. Now white is a piece up, but now after pawn takes, like if you try to capture the knight, it's already takes. And after king takes, queen to g5 check, white is a piece up, and it's eventually, in the long run, it's a draw. So going back, knight into e3 is not really working, but queen g5 is working, and that's the move Vidit decided to play in the position. Queen g5, and that's a triple attack. How can you even try to defend the position? f4 is also coming in. The position is simply over, I would say. Queen g5. Nakamura decided to run away with his king with king to e1. You can just see all his queen side pieces are simply not yet developed. It's completely lost position. This time, finally, Vidit released the pressure by capturing the knight. Bishop takes the knight. Queen takes. Bishop takes. Knight takes. Queen to e2. And after queen e2, like if this position, if you are playing with the black pieces, many of the players would like to trade out the queen, play knight c2, attacking the rook. It's a fine move, but it's not the best. You have lost heavy advantage of yours. So at the place of capturing the queen, Vidit simply played the move queen to g3, keeping the queens on the board. And the point here is, after king to d2, obviously if you try to play queen to f3 in the position, now knight c2, you can't really capture the knight, and it's completely winning because black is going to capture the rook for free. So white decided to move the king, and now simply rook d8 check, king to c1, and now already queen to g5, the best move in the position. The idea is to simply move the knight and give a check, and you can't do much. The king has nowhere to go. So b3, trying to run away, but now already knight to f1 check. It's a check, and if you try to play the move king b2, knight to g3, and it's eventually a lost position. You are an exchange down, the king is already busted, the position is lost. So that's why after, you can say knight to f1 in the position, on the 29th move, Hikaru Nakamura decided to simply resign the position. And we have the champion, Vidit Gujrathi, winning against Hikaru Nakamura with the black pieces in only 29 moves. He simply busted Hikaru Nakamura, simply crushed Nakamura, practically. And like, the move that are needed to be found by Nakamura was not humanly possible, I would say, because each move is, you need to calculate with heavy detail, which is nearly impossible for even a human like Magnus Carlsen. So, brilliant gameplay by Vidit Gujrathi to beat Nakamura. If you simply guys love this video, love this game, then make sure to like the video. So, total 8 players are playing the candidates tournament: Vidit Gujrathi, Pragnananda, Gukesh, Hikaru Nakamura, Caruana Fabiano, Yana Pomniachi, Nijat Abbasov, and Alireza Firouzja. So these were the 8 candidates, and the first round, it was all draw, but the second round, all 4 games have a decisive result. Against the game between Pragnanda and Gukesh, Gukesh won the game. In this game, Vidit won the game. Caruana Fabiano versus Nijat Abbasov. Caruana simply beat Nijat Abbasov, and against the game of Yana Pomniachi versus Alireza Firouzja, Ian simply won the game. So these were the results. If you like the recap, make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you are new to our channel. I'm going to come up with these interesting videos like this because the tournament has just begun. We are going to see some critical games and interesting games. And yeah, that's it. So I'm going to see you soon. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching. One shot cheers.